Hypermobility is something that has really changed people and how they see the world, how they travel the world, and how they live their lives. But there is also a darker side to hypermobility. That is the name of a paper from a university study out of Britain that talks about the often overlooked negative aspects of travel.
So the researchers, Cohen and Gosling, have named their paper. First, let's start by saying it's the darker side of hypermobility, like you said. I think it's already skewed and a little bit biased. And one of the things that I was talking about when we were mentioning the story is how their control group are frequent business travelers.
This is a very long paper.
It's a very long paper, and it addresses some of the overlooked effects of frequent traveling. But again, like I said, I think that the results are skewed. It's a very depressing paper, I have to say. I'm so sorry, but it is very depressing. The whole time it's talking about how travel is over glamorized and how we look at it as this symbol to accrue status, and how people, depending on whether they're flying or they're going in their car, how much they're traveling, how many frequent flyer miles they have, how long the distance is, how many iconic places they've visited. Those are some of the factors that they take into consideration, and how the higher those are, the more it seems to grant the traveler status in the social networks.
I've certainly seen people brag about this before.
Of course.
You know, oh, you've never been to Prague? Well, you know, I'm just like, yeah, okay. But this is a little bit, you know, on the opposite side of that.
Exactly. So this takes that premise and then says, but wait a second, because you're overlooking all of these damaging effects of frequent travel. And it's going from talking about jet lag and how that affects your cognitive abilities and your stress levels and your anxiety. It goes into isolation and social factors, and it talks about loneliness. It also talks about real, kind of tangible, at this point, physical effects. So it talks about exposure to radiation. And one of the things that I found interesting was that flight crews have higher exposure to radiation than workers at power plants, at nuclear power plants.
I did not know that. I was looking more at the physiological and emotional side, but there is obviously a biological factor and a social factor in this entire study. Wow, I did not read that part.
Yeah,
it was you read deeper than I did.
But again, it was kind of depressing. So they're talking about deep vein thrombosis and dehydration and the effects that that can have on a body from frequent travel.
Right. Most plane cabins are at about 10% humidity, and most humans are more comfortable at around 50%. And then when we're drinking things like fizzy beverages, diuretics that are not helping the situation at all.
Exactly. And the thing about this is the whole paper, 35 pages of the paper are kind of warning you about all these negative side effects. And then in the abstract, in the introduction, they're telling you, oh, travel is you know, it's hyped up, and that's not the word they use in the paper, but it's, you know, it's glamorized, and it's something that they are kind of bashing throughout the paper. They are talking about all these negative effects. And then in the conclusion, they say, we don't necessarily think that travel is a bad thing, despite calling our paper the darker side of hypermobility, which was a little bit contradicting to me. I didn't really understand, other than the negativity associated with this paper, what you would get from it.
Perhaps what they were aiming at was, you know, there already is a positive side to this, so let's just look at this opposition, and that we don't need to provide the positive aspects of travel, because that has already been confirmed many different ways, perhaps anecdotally, but still. I don't know. I'm using devil's advocate. I don't know.
I like devil's advocate. I just kind of refute it again with saying the control group is people who are forced to travel for business. So you're not looking at travel for, you know,
lonely.
That could be lonely and stressful and cause anxiety, and of course have worse effects than if you're going home for Christmas and you're seeing your family, or you're traveling for pleasure or going on vacation.
Right. Well, we've definitely dissected that down. Audience, do you ever feel like you've experienced the darker side of hypermobility? Or do you feel more that the good outweighs the bad? Let us know below in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more.